So I think almost every windsurf spot you head to at the moment, there's a bit of chat, a bit of a buzz about foiling, what it is, how to get into it, what kit do I need, how do I even do it. So over the next few minutes, I'm going to run you through the basics you need to know, the core skills and the core little bits of setup you can do to get yourself up and foiling for the first time. Firstly, the kit and the conditions I'm in. Now I think out there right now there's a few guys planing around on 7 and 8 meter sails, so it's definitely planing conditions, and that's very important when it comes to your first flights. Make sure there is wind. Yes, foiling can be done in lighter winds when you know what you're doing, when you've got some experience, and when you're on the correct kit. But for your first flights, you need planing windsurf conditions. What I'm in right now seems pretty ideal. If you're normally on a 6 meter or bigger, it's going to be pretty good. And you're going to drop down at least a meter, if not 1.5 to 2 meters. I'm on a 5.7 sail right now, and I think I should be powered up quite nicely on the foil. The other thing to bear in mind is foiling kit is good if you can get your hands on it. In the dream world, you get yourself a nice new board, a nice low profile foil, one of the huge big front wings, and then you'll be foiling in no time. However, I think in my experience, most people don't have the money to spend on that straight away, or at least don't want to until you've given it a bit of a go. I'm on the Universal RRD foil, which is a really big front wing, a low aspect foil, perfect for light winds and for learning to foil for the first time. And I'm on a hybrid board. It's a 135 fire move. It's the flight edition, which means they have made some changes to make it a little bit more foiling specific, but really it's not. It's a windsurf board that you can foil on. So just as I start to get towards the wind here, there's some basic logic that you need to know from foiling that's going to stay with you throughout all of your foiling career. The further back I get on my board, with my power and with my weight, as I'm starting to do here, the more lift you create, the more the board will start to fly. The further forward you get, the more the board will come down, pin back onto the water, and stop flying. Simple as that. As long as you can remember that basic logic, you're not going to go too far wrong. So, I'm starting upwind. I've definitely got a bit of power coming towards me now. Not as much as I'd need to get planing, but I reckon this is almost enough that I can get up onto the foil. Remaining unhooked, front foot goes into the strap quite early. My back foot goes back near the back foot strap, but not into it. I now can start to apply some power and start to bring my weight a little bit further back on the board, and fairly quickly I start to fly. As soon as I start to fly, I'm looking back up and into the wind, and I start to head back upwind once again. Stick with that logic we just had. If I bring my weight forwards on the front leg, down through the front hand, the board touches down. If I bring my weight back slightly, the power's come on a bit more, and I've come back just that little bit more, we take off. Stick with that logic, you can't go far wrong. Too high, bring it down, front hand, front foot, you start to touch down. Back leg pressure, you start to come back up again. Level it out, balancing your weight a little bit forwards, a little bit back, you start to level off. Key thing, remain looking up towards the wind so you know if you're about to get hit by a gust or not. You can see what's coming up towards you, and then you can start to cruise it back upwind that little bit more. Bring it back down, front hand, front foot, into the wind, and out of the foot strap. There's our first flight. Let's try this again on the new direction. Same coaching points. Look for the wind so I know what's going to happen. Make sure I've got a bit of power, but I'm not crazy powered up, but I've definitely got some power here. Out of the harness, into the front foot strap. And when I'm ready, start to apply some power down, back, and through my back foot. You'll start to get some lift. Through the front leg and the front hand, brings me down and levels me off. Then it's just a case of finding the sweet spot. Too much front foot pressure, you touch down. Too much back foot pressure, we go really high. And the aim is to keep the waterline roughly in the middle of the mast. The vertical part of the foil called the mast, trying to keep the waterline roughly there. If you go too high, the front wing comes out of the water, and that's when you come back down pretty quickly. We go too low, we hit the water, we effectively hit the brakes and stop pretty quickly. Once you get the hang of this, once you're up, staying on the foil is less about the power and more about balancing your weight between that front and back foot. In fact, without much power at all, the only power I've got here is what the front hand has given by having it near the harness lines. All I've got here is my front and back foot working together. Back foot pressure gives me a bit more lift. And we can pump and work the foil by pressing down through the foil. Down through the front hand, down through the front foot. We come back down and enter a tap. On this next run, there's two little tips that I've given you just there that I want to elaborate slightly on. And that was staying out of the harness and out of the back foot strap. The reason I'd say stay out of the harness to start with is because when you're in the harness, more power is driven through the mast and into the foil, you're going to get more lift. Chances are on your first flight, you probably don't want that. Now I've got some control, I've hooked in, I'm using the harness very similar to the way I'd use normally. And you can start to relax your hands on the boom, still control the lift through your front and back foot, but then a little pull down through the harness and forwards with my hips can bring me down, or down through my harness and back on the board brings me up, just the same as you would if it was just your feet or your hands, except through the harness. The other tip I gave at the start was, to start with, not using your back foot strap, because I've encouraged you to go out in windy enough wind, and try that sentence again, I've encouraged you to go out in strong enough wind that you are actually powered up. If you discover that you can't get power, you're not going with any lift at all, you're just planing along, there's two things you can do. Thinking along that same logic of, to get the board to lift, you have to get back. The first thing you can do is step into the back foot strap. That instantly gives me a little bit more lift in the wind I'm currently in. So if it's marginal and you're trying to get going, and this works particularly well when you get onto hybrid boards that don't want to lift quite as much as a foil board, is you may find once you've got the first little basic flights in, actually I want to get the lift, the board won't take off as much as I want, use the back foot strap a little bit. The other trick that comes in, which is the same in foil boards, but it's really, really relevant for boards like the one I'm on just now, and other hybrid foil ready boards that you might try out, is the position of the UJ. Same logic. If I've got too much lift, move the UJ forwards, and the board will stick to the water or level off a lot easier. The further back you bring the UJ, the more lift you get. A little bit more marginal trying to get onto the foil now. A little bit less wind, so I'm into the back foot strap. I've got a bit of board speed, and now I'm going to push down through the back foot strap, down through my back foot, and that gave me that lift straight away. I'm going to do that once again. I'm going to come down and land, through the front foot, through the front hand. Pumping on a foil is much less on the sail and much more on the board than perhaps you're used to. Pushing down through my back foot will get the lift I need. The sail, once I've got a little bit of board speed, the sail can stay relatively still. That lift is created through pressing down through my back foot, like I'm trying to push the foil down into the bed of the ocean below me. A lot of power right now. I'm steering upwind, pulling down through my front hand, down through my front foot, and I'm not in the back foot strap because it would just give me far too much lift. To confirm that tip just before, if this wind remained and I was constantly just too powered up, too much lift, I'm going to head to the beach, move my UJ forward a few inches, and it'll make the world of difference. It'll transform the kit and make it much easier to handle. I'm quite powered up right now. Obviously I can't change the UJ straight away, and just to confirm, don't change the UJ position out at sea. Go back to the nearest landing spot and do it when you can touch the sand. The other little thing I could do, unhook of course, and move my back foot a little bit more central on the board. My back foot is now between the two foot straps at the back of the board. I've now got a lot less lift, and this actually allows me to bear away and start to come back downwind with much more control, much easier to do. The further back, the further out you are, the more lift you get. It's back to that same logic as at the start. Let's play with some one-handed power. If you get over the board vertically, you can press down through the foil and bounce the foil. Get a nice bit of lift just through where you're standing. And it's a very different stance to a windsurfer's stance. Classic windsurfer, raked back and out with our hips and our bum towards the water. A foil, we're vertical. I'm right on top of the board here. There's not a chance I can reach the water behind me. I'm not raking that sail over on top of me. I'm standing very vertical, so I can push down through the foil. Down through the front hand, down through the front foot, slow it down and stop. So thank you for joining me on a little ride along foil session here today. I hope something's made a bit of sense to you and you can get on the water on whatever kit you've got. It doesn't have to be the latest foil specific kit. Take a hybrid, take something that works, that you can plug a foil into the back to. And remember the key tips from the start and throughout. Weight and pressure at the back will make you go up. Bring everything forwards, you'll come back down. Keep that in mind, you can't go much wrong. Thanks for subscribing to this channel, and stay tuned for the next one of the foiling series. We're going to go through a bit more of improving our stance whilst foiling, moving towards some improved tacking, and of course, how to stay on the foil throughout the jibes. So I'll see you next time. Thank you.